Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Film Club, and today we're reviewing the first big summer movie of 2018. And not only that, this is the big one. This is the one that fans around the world have been waiting for the last 10 years, and that is Avengers Infinity War. Everybody's been waiting for this movie. This is the final big whole thing is wrapped up into one ball. This is that movie we've been waiting for, to see all of these heroes interact with each other on screen, some of them for the first time ever meeting each other on screen, and I have to say it did not disappoint me whatsoever. Being someone who's more of a DC fan than a Marvel fan, and I will apologize ahead of time for a couple things in this movie review. Number one, there will be spoilers. If you have not seen Avengers Infinity War yet, do not watch this video. Trust me when I tell you it's good. Go watch the movie, come back, watch this video after. There's no way of getting around spoilers in a review for this movie. And then secondly, I will tell you, as I've stated before, I'm a DC guy, I'm not a Marvel guy, so I might mix up people's names or not have their name. I might get something screwed up that is from the comics, and if that is so, be kind to me in the comments on this video review. I'm not trying to be insensitive to Marvel fans or to comic book fans, but I'm a DC guy. That's what I read, primarily Batman, but other DC heroes as well. So when it comes to Marvel, my vast knowledge of the Marvel universe is these movies and a little bit of what some of my other friends tell me, and that's pretty much it. I don't really read Marvel comics, so I kind of just go to these movies and enjoy them for what they are. So, with those things set aside, let's talk about Avengers Infinity War. I will start off this review by saying I really liked Avengers Infinity War, and I'm gonna give it a very high score when we get to the end of this video. However, it isn't without its problems, and it isn't without some issues, and we have to discuss those. And one of my first biggest issues with this movie is the opening of it. Now, I know the opening of this movie was designed to be kind of a gut punch for fans because it does involve the death of a very beloved character to this entire whole Marvel Cinematic Universe franchise, which we will get to again. And again, huge spoilers here, so the problem I had with it is the movie just opens and we're on the ship that Thor was on from the end of Thor Ragnarok, and I'd say probably everybody here is pretty much dead. You get the death of Idris Elba's character, the real gut punch death to a lot of Marvel Cinematic Universe fans, and that is the death of Loki. Yes, Loki is dead, he is killed, and even after he's killed, Thanos makes the comment of no resurrection this time. He's dead, it's over. Now, and that's going to be a huge issue I have when we get to the end of this movie. The problem I had with the opening of this movie was it just kind of opened, and it was all of a sudden just like, oh, we're on Thor's ship, I guess, and some crazy shit has happened, but you don't see it. And that was my disappointment. There was no huge battle, there was no one coming in and blazing in and seeing all these people die, this mass genocide. You know, we've been taught for years throughout all these other Marvel movies that Thanos is this huge big bad guy to be feared, and I feel like the movie's opening would have been more effective if we would have seen that. Now, obviously, later on there are scenes of him kicking ass, and there's even flashback sequences that are of him kicking ass and killing a ton of people, and, you know, pretty much genocide. And that's good because that's important to show in this movie when you're trying to build up the fear of a character that is 100% CG. And he still looks bad. Like, I'm sorry, as someone who stands here and tells you Steppenwolf looked bad in Justice League, Thanos looks just as bad to me in the Avengers movie. He's a big purple dude, and he looks bad. And that's a big problem with me having fear to a giant movie villain, is when I look at him and I just kind of laugh because he looks bad. And I know a lot of Marvel fans are going to get pissed and write angry comments in the comments section, but I don't think he looks good. I never thought he looked good in anything they've ever shown, but for some reason I think he looks worse here. And it's a shame because the production value of this movie is absurd and everything else looks incredible. I have to really tip my hat to the production team that made this movie, or this first of a two-part. It looks incredible. It is unlike a lot of comic book movies you've ever seen. It is unlike any other comic book movie you've ever seen, actually. and it looks incredible. Every scene of it, all the other CG and everything looks great. I just, for some reason, Thanos, he just doesn't look good. Putting that aside, that's where I felt the beginning of this movie could have been more effective, is if you've shown the destruction and the chaos that this man creates, rather than just show the aftermath of it. Now, yes, you still get the gut punch of Loki's death and Idris Elba's character's death, who, for whatever reason, I can't remember his name right now. It's a gut punch, and it really does suck, because Loki was an awesome character, arguably the best villain throughout the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, and he's dead. It's over, and that's fine. So, but I feel like it could have been a more effective intro to this movie that's already 2.5 hours long if you had shown a little bit more of Thanos and his crew attacking that ship. So, it is what it is, whatever. After that, we kind of have a little mishmash of different things. Obviously, Hulk was on that ship and he got blasted back to Earth to warn the Avengers of what is coming. We get our first team up of Doctor Strange and Iron Man. That's an awesome team up because those two characters butt heads constantly, and I love that for it. We get Spider-Man, and we start just getting sequences of random groups of heroes together in situations that are awesome and awe-inspiring when you watch them, and it's fun for that because there's also not only team-ups that you're not expecting, but characters you never thought you would see on screen together. One of my favorite pair-ups in the movie is Thor with Rocket Raccoon and Groot. Like, that says a lot right there about what they did for this movie. And the other thing I have to say about Avengers Infinity War is that no character is wasted in this movie. For the impossible task of putting so many Marvel characters into one specific movie and putting them all in there and making them all feel like they have a moment, they have a purpose to it, is an incredible task. And I feel like it was executed perfectly, because there's not a simple character I can sit back and go, yeah, they really weren't needed here. Every character plays a role, they play a part, and they play it well. I also have to tip my hat to every actor in this movie. No one felt out of place, no one was phoning it in. Everybody was giving their A game in this movie, and it really showed by the end of it. Even Josh Brolin, I have to give credit where credit's due. No matter how bad Thanos looks as a CG character, he has an excellent performance in the role of Thanos. And that's going to be the second big thing I talk about in this movie, the more that I think about it afterwards, is for one of the first times in a Marvel movie, they actually took a villain and they gave him a compelling backstory and history to explain why he's doing what he's doing. And that's been a problem with a lot of Marvel movies. A lot of Marvel movies have just been, hey, this villain's here and I want to take over the world, or I want to take over the universe, and nothing's really explained as well other than they're bad and they want to do that. Thanos is portrayed as almost charismatic at times because he is doing this for what he feels is the good of the universe, and it's excellent. He does such a good job, Josh Brolin, of playing that role, and kind of there's almost a sadness a lot of times to what he's doing, because he's feels that this is the path to correct balance in the universe. And it's an interesting performance, and I feel it really highlighted a major problem with a lot of Marvel movies, and that was bad, undeveloped villains, and they really develop his backstory here. Putting that aside, I want to talk about one other issue I had with the movie, and that was pacing. There is one major pacing issue I had in this movie, and I don't see a lot of people talking about it, and I have to bring it up. So there is the sequence when Vision and Scarlet Witch are kind of having their little moment. I think they're in London, but I could be wrong. I can't remember exactly what city. Maybe it was Paris. I can't remember. But they're having their little moment. They're walking on the street. They get attacked by some of Thanos's, what are they called? Like the Black Children or something. I forget what they're called, but his bad group attacks them. And during this sequence of events, that's when Captain America, Black Widow, and Falcon show up to help them and save the day, so to speak. And they kind of all, fend them off, and then they get on his little ship, and he says, hey, we're going to fly to Wakanda. I know a guy. And all of a sudden, from that, it just cuts to a backstory flashback between Gamora and Thanos. And there's no indication of this time jump or cutaway or telling you, hey, this is a flashback so many years ago. It just happens. And I had a problem with that, because for a good 30 seconds to a minute, I was like, what the hell is happening, until you see like the small child and she's green and you realize, oh, this is Gamora, this is a flashback. But it was a weird place in this movie to stick that scene in, and I felt like it kind of really interrupted the flow of the movie. I would say this is probably maybe at the hour mark of the movie, but that was a complaint I had. The rest of the pacing in the movie is pretty good, but that was one thing where I felt like it just kind of took a big halt to the action of this movie and just was like, hey, we're going to tell you this backstory really quick. Okay, back to the action. And it was weird. I feel like it could have been handled better, but that's just me being a film nerd and picking apart a movie, I guess. With that being said, we got to talk about the end of this movie, and we have to talk about my concerns for what we're doing here. So obviously they do follow the storyline pretty faithfully to the comics, from what I've been told and what I've researched myself. Thanos does get all of the Infinity Stones, and like Gamora predicts, all he has to do is snap his fingers and he can wipe out half of the population like he says he's going to do, and that's exactly what he does at the end of this movie. So you get what I would argue is one of the biggest gut punches in a movie I've seen in a while, and a very sad, somber sequence that brought a lot of gasps, I'm sure. I saw this at a drive-in, so I didn't get like an audience reaction around me, but I can only imagine across the country as people are watching this movie, the gasps. But you get a sequence of a lot of Avengers just disappearing into ash, and you get a lot of people are gone. And this is my big problem with this movie and what we're doing with Infinity War and going forward, is we were promised ramifications for what happens in Infinity War is going to affect the next phase of these Marvel movies. And my problem here is there has to be permanence. Now, obviously, and again, huge spoilers here, characters like Spider-Man, Black Panther, Bucky, or as you know him, the Winter Soldier, Doctor Strange, all of these characters that disappear at the end of this movie, Star-Lord, and I know I'm missing some, but all of these characters that disappear at the end of this movie, they're not going to be permanently dead. We're still getting a Spider-Man Homecoming 2. We're still going to get another Black Panther. We're going to get a ton of these movies. So we know already, and that's the problem with this movie. We already know people aren't going to be dead. And the problem I have going into Infinity War 2 is if we just gather up this gauntlet, because the gauntlet itself, they show it's broken, but the Infinity Stones are intact, and obviously it looks like they could just go back to the dude from Game of Thrones character and get the stones back into a different gauntlet and undo this. And that's my problem here. If we don't have some sort of permanence in this full franchise and we just undo everything that's been done in this movie by rewinding time, it's a huge cop-out to me, because there needs to be some permanence. There needs to be something. And if we just rewind time and all of a sudden all these heroes are okay and we defeated Thanos, yay, and that's the end of Infinity War Part 2, that's going to be disappointing. And now I do know in the comics that, yes, they do reverse things. However, there needs to be some permanence here. There needs to be something going forward. You know, I'm super okay with Loki being dead. It's a bummer, but we need some permanence here to make these movies really effective, because if you just undo everything in Infinity War Part 2, then it's disappointing to me, because what did I just watch? All these people died just to be resurrected again? Like, wow, cool. So, and again, I know some things of how the comics go, but I'm hoping that even though some of the comics, they do rewind things and they do kind of restore what happened, I'm hoping that maybe in the movies here, something's still permanent. I need permanent ramifications here. That's all I want. And if Avengers Infinity War Part 2 is permanent ramifications for the events of Part 1, then I'm going to be more happy. So it's a gut punch. It's a shocking ending to a lot of Marvel fans, especially people like me who don't really read the Marvel comics. It was an awesome movie. It's an awesome spectacle, and I think it's a crowning achievement for what Marvel has tried to do in 10 years. I really enjoyed Avengers Infinity War. I look forward to seeing it again here at some point. I thought it was a great movie. There's not really a lot of complaints I have about the movie. I'm giving this an A. I really enjoyed it. I think you guys will enjoy it too. I think you guys should go out and see it. I'm sure you probably already have if you're watching this video. And I look forward to what happens next. I mean, obviously, if you watch the post-credits scene of Infinity War, you know that Nick Fury was calling Captain Marvel. We already know that she's getting her own solo origin movie next March, and she's obviously going to be a huge part of what happens in Infinity War Part 2, or whatever they end up calling that movie next May. So it's going to be a long wait for a year to see what happens, but I felt it was an effective movie, and it was fun to see 10 years of Marvel Cinematic history come together in one giant movie. And I look forward to what comes next. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video review. Again, be kind to me in the comments section. You know, I'm not a huge Marvel fan, and if I got something wrong, you can correct me in the comments, but just be nice to me. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And as always, until next time.